Alrighty, well, very happy to be going live on this Tuesday. Really excited that people are able to join. We're going to be talking about how leaders can stay positive. How long can they stay positive? And as people join the live stream today to listen and discuss and share, I thought I would share something that is a question I get asked all the time, which is, how do you tie a bow tie? So here is the bonus content for anyone who is watching this recording or anyone who is tuned in a little bit early. There is really no secret to tying a bow tie. It's the same knot that you would tie when you're tying your shoes. And as long as you know one or two little tricks and are fine practicing it in the mirror a little bit, you'll do just fine. So here we go. So I've got the bow tie for today, a really fun blue and yellow one. Let's put it under my collar like that. Okay, so we're starting out kind of the same as you would tie a regular necktie, right? And once you've got it underneath your collar, you can button the top button. And then the key is that you're gonna have one end of this a little bit longer than the other end. And take the long end and have that lead the way, making a standard kind of overhand knot, okay? And then what ends up to be in your left hand, you can turn and make a bow tie shape. You can then go up and over the top, and there's only one place to go underneath, and you sort of push it through, and then you neaten it up like this. So if you're just joining us, I'm really glad that you're here. You can say where you're tuning in from, and very grateful to have my colleagues Stephen and Darby sending questions my way. So we'll be talking a little bit about how long you can stay positive if you're in a supervisory position. The focus for today's Facebook Live is on those of you in the camp world or the school world who are heads or deans or owners or directors, and you're working hard to manage the morale as well as the organization and planning of your team. I think camp professionals and school professionals are in much the same position. That is to say, they've got lots of people working with them who want to know the answer to the question, are we going to do this or not? Will summer school plan proceed? Will the summer camp plan proceed? And I think everybody recognizes at this point that the summer of 2020 is going to look different than previous summers have. So okay, but those of you in supervisory positions who are principals, heads of school, heads of boarding, dean of students, who are owners or directors of summer camps or parks and rec departments, whether that's a day program, an overnight program, all under a lot of pressure. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of people who are looking to you for answers. And as I talked about in a previous Facebook Live, you don't always have those answers. So that's going to be our focus for today. And those of you joining just now, welcome. You can go ahead in the comment section, just say where you're tuning from, where you're joining us from today. Such an old expression to think about, tuning in, right? See, I grew up with AM and FM radios where there actually was a tuning knob, and you had to get the amplitude modulation or the frequency modulation just right in order to get an uninterrupted signal. So I'm Dr. Chris Thurber. I'm a clinical psychologist by training, and I work at Phillips Exeter Academy, which is a co-educational secondary school in the seacoast of New Hampshire. We're about 1 hour north of Boston in the Northeast United States, 1 hour south of Portland, Maine. So a bit of geography for those of you joining from another country or who haven't traveled to the US before. As I said, I'm a psychologist. I spend a good part of my day doing individual psychotherapy with students. Our students, as I said, are secondary school students, so between the ages of 14 and 18, a few 13-year-olds, a few 19-year-olds. And in the spring and summer, I have the good fortune to travel to a lot of summer programs, summer youth programs at colleges or universities, summer schools, as well as traditional summer camps, most of them overnight camps, to provide a day of workshops or 2 or 3 days of workshops for the staff. Don't know if I'll be doing that this spring and summer, but we'll see. So that's my background. You see behind me, Prep for School and Prep for Camp are two subscription services that I've created that are designed to promote the adjustment of either new students or new campers. And you can find out more about those two things by visiting my website, which is drchristhurber.com. And we'll put the link in the comments. All right, so our topic today is, well, the title, How Long Can Leaders Stay Positive? And I suppose that's a little bit tongue-in-cheek because there has to be some end to how we can maintain a positive attitude. But that's really what I thought would attract people to this Facebook Live, is thinking about, okay, without a lot of answers, how do I maintain my own mental health? How do I maintain the morale and motivation of my team? And that's what we're going to talk about. You can, if you want, take notes. You can ask questions in the comments here, and Darby and Stephen will feed those questions to me. But if you visit my website, drchristhurber.com, there are a lot of free handouts right on the homepage. You don't have to go anywhere, just on the landing page, and you'll be able to download. Here's the handout for today. Hold it up right there. Oh, that's a little bright. Okay. How long can leaders stay positive? And I'm going to go over 6 different constructs, which each have implications for things you can do. Now, if you're joining us and you're someone who's not in a supervisory position, you're not a principal, you're not an assistant principal or a head or an assistant head or a dean, or that's totally fine. I'm really glad that you're here. All of these things that I'm going to share today will be useful. And if you have follow-up questions, because I'm not able to answer all of them in the hour that we have, you can mail me. Absolutely fine. So I just want to begin by saying 2 things that I know you've heard before. First of all, just to provide some empathy, each of you is going through something extraordinarily unusual and challenging. And again, I know you've heard that before, but I think it just helps to name it. I don't want any of the things I say during this Facebook Live to seem glib or rehearsed. I'm going through this as well. I'm with my family, staying put. And I will say that it's not always been easy. And trying to manage, my career as you're managing yours. And for those of you who are responsible for a team, small, medium, or large, that's an additional responsibility and can be an additional source of stress. So I just want to say, we've been doing this now for a few weeks, if not longer, and it can get lonely, it can get stressful if you found yourself feeling distracted, irritable, grumpy, if you feel like your fuse is shorter than usual, if you feel like you have more or less energy. Yep, you're human. And I also want to say there's great variability always to our moods and what kind of a day you think you're having. But if you've noticed greater variability since being socially distanced and quarantined, yeah, I think you're in good company. It's it's ironic because a lot of us would have said, a couple of months ago, "Oh, I'd love to be able to spend more time with my family," or, I just wish I were home more, home with the kids more. If you have kids, wish I got to spend more time with my spouse, whatever it might be. And now we've all probably reached the point where we're like, you know what? That's good. Love my kids, love my spouse. Maybe, you're enjoying time alone and your housing situation is, more solitary, and that's wonderful. And you probably said to yourself, I just wish I had more time to spend here getting some projects done. But everyone, I think, at this point is feeling like, yeah, this could wrap up anytime now. We're good. Um, but we don't exactly know what the timeline is. And so, we'll see how it goes and we'll support one another through it. All right. So, those are the things that I wanted to say at the outset. It's important as I go through these recommendations that you also uh, keep in mind the foundations of wellness. So, this is not going to be a Facebook Live where I spend a lot of time talking about eating, sleeping, exercising, and for a lot of people, spiritual or meditative component to your wellness. But these are the things that serve as the foundation for our physical and emotional well-being. So anything that I'm going to share today is not going to be particularly effective if you don't have those fundamental pieces in place. So I'll say them again, eating, sleeping, exercise, and for a lot of people, spiritual component, which could be religious or non-religious. Many people just observed or still observing Passover or Easter. Now, Eastern Orthodox Christians will be celebrating Pascha next Sunday. So look, there's a lot going on that we're attending to, and we don't want to neglect those foundations of wellness. All right, so how long can we stay positive? Obvious answer is not forever. But what are the things that are going to buoy us? What are the things that are going to keep us uh, in a decent mood, in a high functioning state, uh, fairly organized, fairly attentive, and connected to our teams? All right, I've got 6 things for you. And as a mnemonic, we can use some hand gestures. So the first one is this. What do you associate this with? Well, either thumbs up, things are going well, or maybe hitchhiking, like I'm getting out of here. Well, keep those 2 things in mind. First of all, the thumb can remind you that it is important to keep a positive attitude, and a lot of what we experience as irritants are kind of first world problems, and we need to keep them in perspective. Is this a departure from your usual routine? Yeah, it is. And, it is that for all of us. But your team looks to you to set the tone. Your team looks to you to um, model behavior that they're going to then imitate or follow. And, look, when you are always talking about negative things, it can bring the tone and mood of your team down. So recognizing the things that people are doing well, capitalizing on people's strengths, and keeping a positive attitude the best you can, that really does have an effect. And that's not seeing the world through rose-colored glasses. I would not suggest that you exaggerate the positive. I would not suggest that that's the only thing that you talk about with your team. But many of you have heard me give the example from the workshops that I've done on appreciative inquiry. There are 2 ways to start a meeting. And let's just imagine that for your team, many of them are late tuning into the Zoom meeting. And it's starting to bother you that a 2 o'clock meeting is not really getting started until 2:10. But some people are on it too. Some people are on before 2. So there are 2 ways that you can address this. The first, with a positive attitude, you can say, hey, um, before we get into the agenda for today's meeting, I just want to recognize that, of the 15 of you, 4 of you were here prior to 2 o'clock, and 4 of you were able to join by 2:02. I want to hear from those people. How were you able to do that? Because you have multiple demands on your time, and this was successful. You got to the meeting just before it started or right on time. How'd you make that work? And that is the sort of essence of appreciative inquiry as a change management approach, that you recognize what's going well and ask your team, how do we get more of the good stuff? How can we get more of this? Another way you could start the meeting is to say something like, what really chaps my ass is that there were fully like 4 of you who trickled in after 2:05, and it's now 2:12, and we're now just getting started. It's a big waste of time. When you do that, the four people who were late feel terrible. The people who were on time feel like, why are you yelling at me? And everybody's mood and motivation is going to take a dip because you're focusing on the negative. Now, recognize that both of these approaches address the issue, but one of them approaches it from a strengths perspective. Some people were able to get there on time. How did they do it? And get the whole group think creatively about what is it we could do to be on time. So, again, as a mnemonic, when I give the thumbs up and say, stay positive, a lot of what I'm saying is set the tone. And one of the most powerful ways you can set the tone if you're looking to bring your group from point A to point B is recognize what their strengths are. And you can read more about this technique of appreciative inquiry if you Google David Cooper. He's one of the sort of founders of this technique, and has a lot of really good examples, good publications. All right, but the thumbs up can also be hitchhiking, and I don't want you to leave your job or hitchhike down the road, but as a way to remember mobility and movement, this is certainly a time when people need to be flexible. They need to be nimble. You don't need me to tell you that you've already made lots and lots of adjustments to the way that you run your organization. You're planning along multiple paths for the way that things might go. And this is a tremendous professional challenge, one that is going to strengthen you as a leader for sure, maybe more than anything else has to date. But if we use a thumb to remember not only positivity, but the importance of flexibility and being nimble, and what that's going to do for us as a growth experience, then I think, again, the effect on our mental health and the morale and tone that we can set for our team is enhanced. Okay, number two, and what I would be happy to do if you haven't been able to yet download the handout from my website, again, the website is drchristhurber.com, is I will just pull this up and do a little screen share with you, because that's visually interesting, and who wants to look at my mug for an hour, right? Okay, so let me just pull this up. And the second, we did the thumb. The next would be the index finger, right? So what does the index finger remind us of? We use it to point. We use it to point things out, to indicate. This is a good reminder of the importance of delegating and setting priorities, like what's your number one priority, and then what are the priorities that come after that. So as I pull up the PDF of the handout and do a screen share here, I want you to just spend a minute thinking about what you feel your biggest priorities are, and whether sometimes your mental health has suffered a little bit because you just don't feel like you're getting to all of the priorities that you feel deserve your attention. I think not only is that pretty normal that people are feeling pulled in multiple directions, but also it's hard when you're kind of in crisis response mode to even figure out exactly what the priorities are. So let me switch over here, and it's so funny. I just said I was going to screen share thinking, here I am on Zoom, but I'm not. I'm on Facebook Live, so I can't screen share. All right, that one will go down in the annals of, online gaffes. But let's look at this second factor here, which is all about the setting of priorities and the delegation of responsibility. We're, for the most part, not anymore in crisis response mode. I would say we've entered, phase two of the response to COVID-19. And in this phase, it's a lot of long-term planning. People are having to adjust their budgets. Again, whether you are an education professional, you're working in a school, or whether you're working in the summer camp industry or any of those allied summer youth program uh, groups like parks and rec departments. We've had to adjust budgets. We've had to think about different contingencies with regard to attendance, uh, with regard to staffing. Many summer youth programs staff a great deal with international students, college and university students from different countries who come to the US on a J1. Um, right now, we're not sure what's going to happen with those visas. Uh, and it's not permitted for a lot of people to do international travel. So, we're having to manage and plan for the program might go pretty much as expected. It might have some on-site components this summer or in the fall, but with reduced attendance or reduced structure so that there can be more physical distance among participants. Uh, it might happen not at all on site, but virtually in some form or another, or perhaps a combination of some kind of revised on-site program plus a virtual program, or it might be canceled completely. And again, this is quite individual from one, institution to another. But what are we going to do that we are also still attending to our own families? Uh, People have, friends, relatives, family members who maybe have gotten COVID-19 and become symptomatic or quite ill, maybe not, maybe have other needs that have nothing at all to do with coronavirus. But there's a lot that we're juggling here. And for this, second factor, as we, work on prioritizing and using this index finger to delegate responsibilities, I want you to think about either dividing your day if you're a one-person show, or dividing your team if you have multiple team members into folks who are really focused on the here and now and kind of the short term and responding to daily emails, and folks who are doing some more of the long-term planning. Again, for your own mental health, to be able to put your head on the pillow at the end of the day and say, wow, I really, you know, I don't know if I ever have a day where I get everything done that I plan, but I feel like I've been working in these two domains as productively as I can. So again, either part of your day, say from the start of your day, whatever time that is, to midday, you're focused on shorter term things like emails and what needs to happen at your institution that day, and part of it is devoted to long term planning. If you're not dividing your team or your day at this point, I really recommend that you do, again, for your own peace of mind and for the health of your organization. Okay, so what have we done? We've looked at optimism and mobility, and that's best illustrated by the thumb. Then we did the index finger for delegating and prioritizing. Oh, and now we get to the oh so controversial middle finger, which I won't hold up on the screen, and I'll let you use your imaginations. But look, if you'll pardon the crudeness of the gesture, a little bit of humor, and also kind of sticking it to the virus by paying attention to hygiene, paying attention to the social distancing recommendations. So important. You're behaving unselfishly when you put a mask on in a store, or a place where you will be mixing or mingling a bit at an appropriate distance with other people. And I guess it's important to note, we don't really have a shortage of masks because you don't have to use an N95. You're not doing surgery in most cases, but you should know how to put that mask on and off. And the recommendation is that whether you're using a bandana or a cloth mask that you made, And there are wonderful patterns online. The CDC has come out with some good guidelines for what kind of cloth is appropriate and so forth. But the masks, if they're cotton, can be washed and reused, but you want to keep the face side of the mask always pointed toward your face, and you really don't want to touch the mask at all. So use the straps to put it around your ears or to put it over your head. Cover your mouth and nose. This is a way of preventing the spread of your droplets from being aspirated by the people around you. And you should feel really good about that. Again, my focus is on mental health here, and to feel like you're doing your part, to feel like you're protecting other people, to feel like you're contributing to uh, getting us back to business as usual as quickly as possible is a good feeling. If it's a disposable mask, most likely you're going to throw it away, but if it can be reused, pulling it off your ears or your head and putting it on a paper plate ready to be reused, where you're not touching the inside, which is contaminated by your droplets, or the outside, which potentially is contaminated by other people's droplets. Again, hands off the mask except for the straps, and you're in good shape. But the bigger idea here with, stick it to the virus, is this is a worldwide health challenge, and almost every country in the world is touched by this in some way, some more than others. We have plenty of data to see that with appropriate kind of mitigating behaviors like social distancing, like 20-second soapy warm water hand washing, like the use of sanitizer, like coughing and sneezing in your elbow, facing away from other people, go a long way towards slowing the spread of the virus. That's good for business, that's good for our schools and our camps, and it's obviously good for people's health physically as well as their mental health. Mental health and physical health are intimately connected, and it's not just that when you're having flu-like symptoms, you're also in a foul mood. It's that you might be physically perfectly fine, but if some of the people that you love the most in the world are sick and suffering, that takes a toll. And if you need to be caring for them, then I think the stress is even greater. All right, so we've done the thumb, we've done the index finger, we've done the middle finger, and now the ring finger, which is, I guess that's pretty hard to just hold up, but there's my ring. And so what does this finger represent? In a lot of cultures, it's commitment and values. People do wear wedding bands on that finger often in a lot of countries. What is it about commitment? What is it about values that has a positive influence on our mental health? Well, with so many shifts in your daily schedule, in your daily routine, with so many different things going on, so many competing demands on your schedule, it can be enormously helpful to feel grounded by returning to the values that you hold dear, whether that's gratitude or compassion for other people or unselfishness. Whatever those values might be, whatever traditions, religious, spiritual, or otherwise, whatever things you would say, oh, this is a core part of who I am, that hasn't changed. And no mental or physical challenge or problem would change those things. It's for most of us immutable, and for many of us, our organizations, the schools and camps where we work, have a motto or a slogan or something that helps us quickly remember, oh yeah, that's like the core value. So at Phillips Exeter Academy, at the school where I work, non sibi is the motto that's on the seal, and that in Latin means not for oneself. At the camp where I work in the summer, YMCA Camp Belknap in central New Hampshire, our motto is God first, the other fellow second, myself last. So, however you conceptualize a higher power, having respect for the planet, for other people, and putting others' needs before your own. So an emphasis again on not for oneself, on unselfishness. So why mention this? Well, again, if you can return to those values, it's comforting, it's grounding, and you feel less adrift, not knowing exactly what's going to be on the news that night, not knowing exactly how you're going to feel, uh, but always being able to return to, yeah, that's what's important to me. So we're at about the half-hour mark, and I just want to review where we've been. If you've joined recently in the last 10 or 15 minutes, I'm Chris Thurber. I'm a psychologist. I work at Phillips Exeter Academy, and I do a lot of work around the world with schools and summer youth programs. And we're focusing today on addressing the needs of people who are in supervisory positions or leadership positions who are not only working to manage things personally and for their family, but also who are attending to the morale and motivation and needs of their teams. And as a mnemonic, as a memory aid, we're using fingers. And so thumb represents keeping a positive attitude. And also, if you think about hitchhiking, being flexible and nimble and mobile and being able to change. The index finger is for prioritizing. What's your top priority? What's your secondary priority? It's for delegating. It's for saying you can do this and you can do that. And as we enter phase two of our response institutionally to coronavirus, dividing your team or your own time or both into some crisis management short-term needs and longer term planning for multiple different contingencies. The middle finger for sticking it to the virus by paying attention to all of the recommendations from the CDC, good hygiene, great hand washing technique, proper coughing, use of masks, all those good things. And as I said at the beginning, foundations of wellness, eating, sleeping, exercising, these are also things that boost your immune functioning. And then your ring finger, which represents commitment and values, where it's so important spiritually, emotionally, to return to the things that haven't changed with this pandemic, the things that ground you, the things that guide your choices. So, so important. So, with that sort of midway review, let me talk just about one more important point with regard to commitment. So many of the directors of summer youth programs that I've spoken with in the last week or so have said that one of the biggest challenges for them is being forthcoming with their staff. And the reason, it's hard, as I said at the beginning, is we don't know. Nobody knows a lot of what's going on. In fact, your staff are no doubt watching the same kind of news, reading the same stories, are privy to the same information that you are. So I would never advocate uh, misleading your staff and saying, "Oh, I promise it's going to be this way. I promise we're going to have camp as usual, or I can guarantee it's going to be canceled." I don't think that anyone should make a decision about how the summer will look until they have a reason to. Until your state Department of Health says you can do this or you can't do this, I don't think you need to give people a decision just because they're eager for a decision. I think what you owe your staff is time. And so if you haven't already gathered your staff, both your year-round staff, if you've got them, your seasonal staff, in a giant Zoom meeting or several, smaller Zoom meetings or whatever platform you're using, I urge you to do that. They do deserve some of your time and a report from you about what's your latest thinking with regard to how things are going to run and what factors you're going to use to make a decision. I think for everyone, the decision, is centrally around what is safe for your young participants and what is safe for your staff. Your staff know that. And the parents of your young participants also know that. So you may be hounded for a decision, or when will you know, or, can you just, tell us? Well, nobody's got a crystal ball. So I think asking your staff, okay, what we are doing is planning for a couple of different ways that this might go. Um, and I would like to ask you how you feel about them. And is that something that interests you? For example, we might have a smaller program that's run on a somewhat more limited scale, but is still taking place on site. We wouldn't be doing out of camp trips, or if you're a summer school, we wouldn't be doing excursions or, say, competitions with other summer schools or camps. Is that something that you're interested in? Um, Asking your staff, hey, if you, uh, you know, if I told you that what we were going to do is um, not have any on-site programs, but move to some online programs, is that something that you might want to participate in? So what I'm saying is, it's not only that you need to be providing information to your staff. I think this is the time to be gathering information from them as you describe the different scenarios that you're considering. What is their level, again, our ring finger, what is their level of commitment? What do they feel they need to do? Some of your staff might say, thank you so much for sharing with me kind of what you're thinking. I really need to be start. I need to be start looking for a job because I need some guaranteed income for college tuition next year. So, um, I'll let you know if I commit to something else, but I also want to let you know that I'm going to be searching. Other staff might say, if it weren't camp or summer school, I would be helping my family, and so you can tell me up until the last minute we need you for this or we need you for that. Some staff might say, I'm really only interested in kind of the on-site programming. I don't think I would want to, participate as much as I support the effort in online programming. So, that's how I would approach it with your staff. Okay, and then we've got the pinky finger, the little finger, which I think is a good reminder to have fun and also remember the little things, the little people in your life, which could be your own kids, or if you run a summer youth program, um, your campers, your young participants. Some of you run summer programs for adults, and that's awesome as well. The pinky would just remind us of a couple of things related to smallness and cuteness and the little things. First of all, there are a lot of little things that bring us joy in life, and I think for many people they've let those fall by the wayside. Uh, Pick those back up. The things that really bring you joy, uh, whether it's one of your hobbies or it's exercise and you just haven't gotten around to it, or it's um, I don't know what, your favorite sitcom. There's no limit to the things that can bring people joy. But if you're so preoccupied with work related things, then your mental health is going to suffer. I was speaking to Stephen yesterday, and he said one of the things that he loves to do a few times a day: go outside, take the dog for a walk, put in his earbuds, listen to his favorite podcast. That's a small thing, but it brings him great joy, and all of us need those throughout the day. Also, the small people, for most of us, our young participants, you know what? Spend time with them online. Gather groups by city, by state, by age group. But I guarantee they will just, you don't have to have an activity. I mean, sure, you can sing a camp song, or you can give them a little bit of an update, or share, pictures of the property, but it's going to really make you feel good to see their faces, to listen to their laughter. My friend Joey LaLiberty, who's one of the leadership directors at Camp Belknap, bought the Leader Core. These are the first tier of the internal leadership development program that we have at Belknap. Brought them online and uh, asked them to share what is their favorite pandemic comfort food. and the answers just had people in stitches. We'll say that there are a lot of Lucky Charms and Annie's mac and cheese being consumed by the young leadership. Um, but it was not just an icebreaker, it was just a chance for people to laugh with some of their best friends. And you deserve that as well as the owner or director or one of the senior staff of your summer youth program. Get some laughter. It's just so, so good for the soul. Okay, and we can also hold our hand up like this and do all five fingers, which to me is a way to remember not just lending an open, healthy hand to, and not we're not touching lots of other people physically in the way that we would lend a helping hand, but have this be not just openness in terms of your spirit, your mind, your emotions, but openness to what an odd experience it is to be socially distanced. Um, Forgive yourself if you have an off day. Your mood can change for no reason at all, or you can have a really productive day followed by a not productive day, and there doesn't need to be a reason. Let it go. Be open to the fact that there will be a variety of moods and levels of efficiency. That's just going to happen, and you're not really doing yourself any good if you blame yourself. Um, there are a lot of people who have lost their jobs. And I don't just mean you can't go to work, but you're still getting a paycheck, or even furloughed. I mean, sorry, you're gone, and I don't think I have anything to offer you, in a month or five. And that's hard. But people then misattribute, I think, blame to themselves, thinking, it's something I did or something I said, or I just wasn't valuable enough. No, this is too unusual a circumstance, and we've got enough to cope with without your heaping blame on yourself for a change in your mood, a change in your motivation, a change in your level of productivity, or a change in your employment status. People are remarkably resilient, and if you can do some of the things that I've talked about in this Facebook Live, you'll survive this as well, and it's you'll be a stronger person for it. Um, all of us also need an out of office confidant, at least one. So, an openness to getting help from other people. It is a tremendous sign of strength to recognize when you need other people's support. But those of you in supervisory or leadership positions tend to hesitate to do this. Like, well, I don't know if I should ask for help, uh, maybe people would perceive that as a sign of weakness. Like, not at all. You're setting a wonderful example if you lean on others. And I say, the triple O, out of office, somebody who's not part of your professional circle, that could be a family member, that could be a childhood friend. You know who that person is. You need at least one of them outside your organization who can be your confidant. That is to say, somebody you can confide in, who will not mince words, not pull punches, simply tell it like it is. You can bounce ideas off of them, you can vent to them, and we all need at least one of those people. So please, please, please make sure you have a triple O, an out of organization or out of office confidant. Okay, so again, the open hand is for openness to forgiveness, to new ideas, an openness to seeking help, and this represents offering help to others. There's probably no more reliable source of authentic happiness than providing, tapping into one of your signature strengths as you provide a service to somebody else. All right, so we have reviewed all six of these factors, and I'll quickly review them before I take some more questions. But thumbs up for positivity, optimism, as well as mobility. Index finger for setting priorities and for delegating. Your middle finger for sticking it to the virus with good hygiene. Your ring finger for commitment and values as a grounding strategy. Your pinky finger for laughter and the little things in life that bring you joy and spending time with the young people that you serve. And then your open hand for openness and helpfulness. So that's what I got today. That is on top of foundations of wellness, eating, sleeping, exercise, and for a lot of people, a spiritual component. And that is on top of providing some genuine empathy. So I'm going to fire up my texts here and um, see uh, what questions people have. Happy to take questions. And again, you can download the handout, which provides a great recap of what the different fingers and the open hand stand for by visiting my website, which is drchristhurber.com. That's just DrChrisThurber, drchristhurber.com. Download it for free, add whatever you want, distribute it as widely as you can, and help out as many people as possible. All right, so uh, first question from the group. What can I do to help my staff's mental health right now while not being in the same office? Several things. First, you can, as I said, be positive yourself. That's part of what the thumb reminds us to do. Um, but I think really what your staff benefit from the most that you and you alone can provide is your time. And so, yes, your attitude makes a big difference. But if you can find a time to just visit with your staff, don't have to have a big announcement. It's not a training session. You don't need any agenda, but just sharing, laughing, hearing how people are doing. Um, get everybody, and maybe you can have 500 people on a Zoom meeting, and have people type in the chat box one thing they're grateful for. Uh, most of us probably don't have a staff that large, and certainly you get more sort of personal contact if you can maybe keep it to 30 people or so, in which case maybe there are different subgroups of your staff. But I think that's the most important thing. Sure, you can share with them some of my handouts and other recommendations, but what I really think each of us can offer that is most powerful and unique is, time with you. So that's what I would suggest. Okay, other questions, let's see, that are coming in. Um, there's somebody's asking about sleep cycle and what's normal in terms of you know bedtime, wake up time. I will say that for my own boys who are 15 and 17, many of you, if not all of you, know that adolescent sleep cycle is shifted a bit. That is to say, normal time for adolescents to wake up is after sunrise by a couple of hours, and to go to bed an equivalent number of hours later. But camper age and staff age young people, let's say between the ages of 8 and 22, American Academy of Pediatrics general recommendation is around 9 hours of sleep. Very few young people get that much sleep, but I think that online schooling has allowed for a later start time, and I wouldn't be surprised if you've got young people uh, living in your household, they're probably getting better sleep if they're taking advantage of a later start to online schooling. I've also seen it go in the other direction, which is that, well, because you don't need as much time to get ready and you can just sort of, throw a shirt on, and there's no commute time, that it's tempting to stay up later. And I would really urge, as I did in an earlier Facebook Live, that you stick with a pretty standard wake up time and a pretty standard bedtime that affords you a restorative amount of sleep. The sweet spot for everybody is a little bit different. Some people are okay with 7 hours. Some people need more than 9. And so I'm not going to be too prescriptive here, but the two things that are most important are to pay attention to how you're feeling during the day. If you're sleepy during the day, you need to be getting more sleep. Number two, that you stick to about the same bedtime and about the same wake up time each day. Otherwise, you're self-inducing the equivalent of jet lag, and that's no fun, and it's not great for your mood. Okay, next question. how can I stay sane working from home and juggling family responsibilities, including helping my kids with distance learning? That's an easy question. You can't. No, I'm just kidding. It's look, it's tough. I'm doing it myself, and I will say that some days are more successful than other days. And I have like pretty self-reliant kids who are on the older side. Um, how can you stay sane? In addition to the things that I've mentioned and the sort of foundations of wellness, um, if there is another adult in the house, a partner, spouse, be sure that you're sharing the responsibility of caring for the kids, whether that's the homeschooling part, the distance learning part, whatever they're doing online, as well as helping them get some exercise and um, you know uh, making sure that their needs are met. I'm thinking of kids of all different ages. So, feeding them, bathing them, whatever it might be. Um, you also need some time to yourself. So, first recommendation would be to share the responsibility if you can. Second recommendation would be to make sure you get some solitary time. Even, fairly young kids, and this question is about, homeschooling. So, um, uh, or distance learning, online learning, guessing those kids are at least, 6, 7, they can do activity by themselves for a while. This is a time when I think cultivating kids' self-reliance in an age-appropriate way uh, is really healthy and will afford you some time to yourself. Also, I want you to recognize there's a wonderful video that I think went around Instagram of a woman. It sounded like she was speaking Hebrew, but I don't speak Hebrew, just on a rant about how difficult homeschooling was with her 3 kids. And it really, I think it went viral because it captured the moment and something that we can all relate to. It's hard. A lot of respect for teachers and a lot of respect for anyone who was used to doing homeschooling. What I can say is you need to recognize there are limits to what you're able to do and the time that you have. And if a few assignments are not perfect or don't get handed in exactly on time, that's okay. Uh, Teachers are very compassionate uh, in general, and certainly during this pandemic, knowing that what it looks like at home is not a quiet library that's well lit with plenty of desk space for everyone and uh, children working diligently. What it looks like is the phone's ringing, you got to be on an online meeting, the dog just peed in the middle of the kitchen, and one of the kids is crying, somebody else just pinched their fingers in the doorway. And, you know, now you're going to help one of your other kids with their math homework. Good luck. Uh, so don't don't take an unrealistic view of what you as one person are capable of doing when it comes to supporting your kids online learning. What I would try to do, if you can, is keep a consistent schedule to the extent possible, and make sure that there's time protected before dinner or after dinner, however it works best in your household, that is where you can give your kids undivided attention. Again, to the extent possible, but don't plan to multitask for at least some of the day. Let that be time that you will spend with your kids on academics. And again, everybody has to be flexible, but your sanity really depends on not overextending yourself, not having unrealistic expectations, making sure that you take good care of yourself, have some solitary time, and to the extent possible, share some of the uh, responsibility. Okay, so we got one more question, um, and let's see. As I scroll through, oh, I guess that was the last one. Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to tell everyone to share, please. Speaking of keeping your sanity, I've got another free Facebook Live that will be at 1 p.m. Eastern on Saturday, that is really designed for parents and other caregivers. And it's called, What Do You Mean You Missed School? Right? And other questions that your kids are, asking you, or you're asking yourself about this bizarre situation that we are all in, right? How can they possibly be missing the school that they complained about daily? Um, so I'm really going to be talking parent to parent. And if you are in a leadership position at a school or a camp, please share my website or my Facebook profile with the parents that are your clients, and let them know, look, I think this guy, Chris Thurber, is an okay guy, and it's going to be a good hour of strategies and venting and laughing. So that's 1 p.m. Eastern, right here on my Facebook profile. I want to encourage you to also download today's handout from my website, which is drchristhurber.com, and I'll post all the links here in the comments section. And just want to thank everybody for taking some time out of your day. I know how strangely busy we all are and how many directions we're all being pulled in. Uh, Please know, if they don't express gratitude, the team that you're leading is tremendously grateful for your positive attitude, for your delegating responsibility, for your helping them remember to stick it to the virus and set a good example through good hygiene, your commitment to your own values and good communication with them, and having some fun, right? The little stuff, and being open to forgiving yourself, being open to new ideas, being open to a new course of action. Who knows exactly where we are headed in the next few months, but if you keep these principles in mind, I think it's going to be smooth sailing. Support one another. If there's somebody you haven't told you love them in the last few days, this is the time to do it. Message them, call them, let them know how much you care. So on behalf of my colleagues and my helpers, Darby and Stephen, I'm Dr. Chris Thurber. Please visit drchristhurber.com for more free resources. And we'll see you next time. This has been a lot of fun. Take good care.